As I was exploring some local beaches, I found some, go figure, some driftwood. So the idea is these are coming back with me, and I'm going to make some lures from Spanish driftwood. So I decided to go ahead and do a little lathing. If you remember, a couple of months ago I went to Spain, and during that time I collected some driftwood in Spain. So this is Spanish driftwood. What kind of wood? I don't know. All of them look to be hardwoods. They look like they've spent some time curing in the salt water. I've let them dry out for a couple of months here in this hot shed. So I want to go ahead and take this little thin one and make a jerkbait out of it. Let's give it a shot. So now, I'm pretty sure I know how much usable wood I have, and it looks as though I'm going to be able to put the head on this side, but I really can only go from here to here, so that's not too bad. I'm going to measure that distance, and then we need to go inside to the dry erase board and do a little design work. Here we are at the drawing board. I turned the AC off, so I gotta talk fast because it'll get hot in here quick. Anyway, here's my initial drawing, and the way I come up with a drawing like this is that I'll usually work on paper, but I'll work sort of oversized so that I don't have to draw it to scale. And I'll for instance, right here, this is exactly 16 inches, so that I know my scale is 4:1 because I've got 4 inches of wood to work with out there. So what I'll do is I'll sketch out aesthetically what I think should be the half shape. Now, it's a good idea to work with just a half shape. It's very difficult to get an exact symmetry in a drawing, especially if you're just sketching. And so I'll decide how wide I want it. I'll decide where that wide spot should be along the length of the lure, and then I'll come in and I'll just draw some lines, and I'll see, kind of average out those lines, so you know when you're just sort of sketching whether it should be a little more pointed, a little less pointed, and then at some point you kind of fair in what you think is the right line, and I'll come in with a draftsman's curve and fair in the nice curve so I have something decent to work with. It's a pretty quick process, doesn't take much, and you don't have to be much of an artist. You just kind of draw what looks good to you. So at this point, what we got to do is pull off our dimensions so we can scale it to what we're doing over there at the lathe. So I know that I've got 4 inches of wood to work with, and that's perfect. My wide point, the wide point is the distance from the nose or the tail that the actual widest point on your lure is. So on a jerk bait like this, a third of the way back from the nose is a good spot. So I'll go ahead and just measure how far back that is, and it's 5.5 inches. So I know that this is 5.5 inches on the scale, and then I need to find out how fat is this lure actually. So it's about 1.25 inches. Now I have the dimensions measured on this scaled up drawing. The next step is to go ahead and scale it down so I can take it out to the lathe and work with it. So the wide point, 5.5, I know it's a 4:1 scale, so 5.5 divided by 4 is 1.375, which is 1 3/8. And then the wide point is 1.25 inches, so 1/4 is, I think, 5/16. Now, this, you have to keep in mind, this is half the diameter. So the actual diameter equals
twice that, right? So 10/16, which is 5/8. So here are the critical dimensions. I'm going to take these and go out to the lathe and start carving a lure. Let's go. Okay, let's get our 4 inches. Okay, so now I need to mark the wide point. That's 1 3/8 over. That's right there. Now another little trick I like to do is to mark that wide point on the tool rest. So I'm going to set it right where I know I'm going to keep it, and I'll mark that wide point right there so that when I go to measure, I can measure in the right spot. So I got a cheap pair of calipers here that'll work just fine, and I'm going to set them at 5/8 for the fatness of the lure. And there it is. That's about right. It's about right. Okay, let's start cutting some wood. Now I'm establishing the general contour of the lure, so that's kind of eyeballed in. I'm just trying to get a nice fluid curve, and then I'm keeping an eye on where that wide point needs to be and trying to make sure that I keep enough meat there and I don't dig it off. I'm going to take it just a little more and then I'll do the rest with sandpaper. I don't want to get it too narrow on each end because I need to work on it while it's still on the lathe. So this is as far as I'm going to go on this video. On the next one, I'm going to show you how you index your lathe to be able to work with your lure on the lathe as long as you can keep it on the lathe and get everything you can possibly get done before you cut it off, and then it's all handwork. So stay tuned for the next one. It should get pretty interesting, and then when we're all done with this bad boy, we'll take it out on the water. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you on the next one.